Ni hao, everybody. Lao Yu Gong here. Old Mr. Simple, simplifying Ching's simplified Tai Chi Chuan for you. Today I thought I'd cover one of the five principles of Professor Ching, which everybody doesn't seem to get. I know I didn't for a long time, and that is fair lady's hand. Trying to get the fair lady's hand, because it's one of those mysteries and conundrums where you're shown it, you read about it, you see the videos, and you still don't get it. I know it happened to me. I think I went 20 years or more before I got it. And that's because no one really gives you the simplified method of getting it. So I had to discover for myself. One of the issues we have in doing the form, a lot of Tai Chi beginners have, is they have what I call dead arms. And a lot of times, and I did it myself, is I was doing the Tai Chi form with a dead hand. It was a dead, floppy hand. Okay. So I was not doing Fair Lady's hand. And I notice online and a lot of my students and other people's students that they're also doing the form with a dead hand. Um, so it's not Fair Lady's hand. And then when they do try to do Fair Lady's hand, it's very stiff. So it's almost like the sword hand in Aikido that I see a lot of people do, or Judo or Jujitsu, where it's very stiff. Um, Fair Lady's hand is one of those things that you don't get until you get it, and that's about everything in Tai Chi Chuan works that way. You don't get it until you get it, unless someone gives you a method to get it. And that's what I'm here today is to give you a method to get it. I was kind of lucky in that when I realized through an intuition on how to root by relaxing all the bones in my feet, after practicing about 6 months of just relaxing all the bones in my feet, so all the muscles and tendons relax from the bone, my hands one day spontaneously went in the fair lady's hands. So that was the start of my journey. That, of course, the feet and the hands are connected, like everything is connected in Tai Chi Chuan. But my hands spontaneously went into fair lady's hands, which I thought was very interesting. And the feeling of it was really different than I had ever thought before. But I always do research besides practice, and I came across a golden nugget in one of Professor Ching's books. I think it was the 13 Treatises, where he briefly mentions setting the wrist. Now, it's like one of those things that in all alchemical texts, they will throw a huge gold nugget and then pass on by it, and you have to connect all the pieces. And setting the wrist is one of the most important elements that's just passed over. And if you aren't reading carefully and you don't have a first or second generation instructor who got it and it was taught to them, you'll miss it completely. Setting the wrist is really the secret to practicing and getting fair ladies' hands. Now, the way to set the wrist, and this is how I teach my students, is the easiest way to conceptualize it, is imagine, the round squeaky in your dog's squeaky toy. It's like a round rubber oblong thing that squeaks. Imagine one of those in your wrists. So it's full of air, but it's plastic. It's small in your wrist. And then when you squish it in your wrist, it causes this elongation feeling to happen in your hand. So if I only think about squishing the little squeaky toy in my wrist, it will naturally, as I compress my wrist, it naturally extends the fingertips. So then what happens is you get a feeling of extension from the base of the palm all the way to your fingertips. And I found that also in the Brennan translations when I was reading through Tai Chi manuals, that they talk about the palm should have a feeling of stretching in the palm. So it's not a relaxed, flappy hand and it's not stiff. It's extended, it's strung. So it's part of stringing the body, is also stringing the wrist, and that sets the hands, and that gives you fair lady's hand. So it's basically setting the wrist. Now you can set the wrist upwards. You can set the wrist downwards. You can set the wrist forwards. But always practice it like there's a little squeaky, squishy toy in your wrist that extends it. And if you practice it that way, you'll begin to feel the stretching, the light stretching. So the stretching is here so that you don't use any muscle in the back of the hand. So I'm not using the muscle in the back of my hand to open my hand. It's a stretching that happens along the front in the palm. Now, some martial arts tradition also call it willow palm or morning glory palm. And I put in the notes, I have a video of how to watch a morning glory when it blooms. That gives you the idea of what the palm does. And one of the amazing things that happened to me one day, I was doing the form, and I was going in the fair lady's hands, and all of a sudden my hands bloomed. And that's another secret, is the hand should bloom. There's a blooming feeling in the hands where it's as if the hand is a flower blooming. So this is the way you practice and get to fair lady's hands. And when you do it just right, there's no tension at all in the back of the hands. There's just a slight stretching that also leaves the divot in the palm. So you never want to get rid of that divot point in the palm where the bubbling well of the palm is. So it's always indented in the palm. But it leaves you with fair lady's hand. So practice that and see how it works for you. I know it worked for me, and it works for my students when I tell them to squeeze the squeaky toy in the wrist. Also, in the second posture of the form, in the Wu Ji posture, when you're getting to the Yang Qi phase where the arms are supposed to float up by themselves, I'm going to give you a secret. When you squish the squishy toy in the wrist and extends the energy through the fingertips, the hands will start to float with the whole arms upward. It's part of getting everything strung together just the right way so that Yang Qi flows. So that's another little secret. So anyway, have a great day, and remember, I may be a Lao Guai, but I'm not a Guai Lao.